If you're thinking about making the move to the South Charlotte area, considering areas like Monroe, North Carolina, well, this video is for you because we're gonna highlight the pros and cons of living in the Monroe area so you can make the best decision for you. With all that said, let's jump right in. Monroe, North Carolina, a historic town with a lot of charm and a lot of history going on in the area. Well, Monroe is location-wise located just east of Wesley Chapel, Weddington, a lot of the more popular areas, more recognizable areas of Union County. And then to Monroe's east, you have Wingate and then Peachland and some other areas to the west of Monroe. But Monroe was founded in 1843 by President James Monroe. And as we've talked about with other areas in Union County, the train system and location and transportation were especially important for the growth of Monroe. Something important to know about Monroe is it is the county seat of the Union County area. So it really is the hub in a lot of ways of Union County and central to the popular areas of Union County that I just discussed. But that's a big part of the Monroe area is this historic charm, as we'll talk about. And there's a lot of history seen in the downtown and some of the other areas of Monroe. Quick timeout before we jump into some more of the pros and cons of the Monroe area. I'm Steve Jarrell with the Longleaf Group, and if this is your first time to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe so you'll be the first to know as we release informational videos about areas just like Monroe. So you'll be the first to know when you click that little bell icon. And as I mentioned, I'm Steve Jarrell with the Longleaf Group, and I love helping people just like you every single day learn about the South Charlotte area so you can make the best decision for you. With all that said, let's jump back in. So the first pro of living in Monroe is a big one, especially for Union County and some of the other areas that we've talked about that are on the price range getting up there, especially in terms of housing, but the cost of living comparing Monroe to really greater Charlotte is very economical. If you're looking at the cost of living as a national average scale, 100 meaning that is the average, Monroe comes in at an 81. So you're talking about a 19% and 19-point difference in the Monroe area to the national average. Now, Charlotte or Mecklenburg County, which is the county for the greater Charlotte area, comes in at a 102.5. That's right, 102.5. So it's a 2.5% higher than the average. Monroe, very economical in housing. And so when I talk about cost of living, I'm talking about groceries, taxes, everything that's encompassed there. Well, cost of living for housing out of a scale of 100 being the national average, Monroe comes in at a 71. So there are some great deals in Monroe. Will we see costs continue to appreciate? Well, where Monroe is located, there's no doubt in my mind it's going to continue to appreciate as it continues to develop, but you have that great cost of living in Monroe. That's absolutely our first pro that we'll talk about. As we look at our first con of living in the Monroe area, that would definitely be, especially if you're traveling up and back and forth to the uptown area, is going to be driving distance. And especially with traffic, you really have 74 or Independence that you're gonna need to get on to get to uptown. And that can be anywhere from 45 minutes, really depends on the traffic. Now, if you're wanting to be away from the hustle and bustle of uptown, of traffic, and staying in the Monroe area and everything it has to offer, that may not be such a con of living in the Monroe area. But if you are needing to get to uptown, that traffic and that, especially the main way of getting in there, which is 74, that traffic, especially during rush hour, can be a bear. The location itself is not super far, but that traffic can definitely congest things quite a bit. Now our next pro, and I'm gonna have to say it's my favorite pro of the Monroe area is the revitalized downtown Monroe area, which is super cool. It is a place that has a mixture of specialty shops, restaurants, breweries, a social district that has really been nominated actually as one of the Main Street America's places to be when it comes to revitalized downtowns. And Monroe's done a great job. There are breweries that have popped up on the downtown strip like Americana Brewery. There's Southern Range Brewery, which also distributes here locally some of their craft beers and IPAs that are awesome. But you also have local coffee shops. You have stores as you stroll down the Monroe main drag of the downtown area that you can see the revitalization of these shops and these places that have business now of law firms that have popped up. And especially with the social district, as you'll be able to see some of the places where they have special hours where people can hang out, can have drinks, and really enjoy being outside during different concert series and just a lot of things going on in downtown Monroe. And that's definitely a pro of this area because they are investing as a city to revitalize the downtown for people, for families to come out and have a really good time, enjoy and work, live and play in Monroe. So that is why the downtown area is definitely a pro if you're considering living in Monroe. One of the most asked questions when families are making the move to the Union County area, or really any area, is what are the schools like? What are their rankings? What are their ratings? And the Monroe area, as judged by greatschools.org, is not one of the most highly rated school zonings that you're going to find. And quite frankly, it's not on the high level when you're looking at some of the schools, that the public schools, whether it's Monroe High School, Sun Valley, some of the others that encompass the Monroe area. They're still great schools overall. Parents, families have had great experiences there, but when you're looking at the rankings, especially when you're comparing Weddington or Cuthbertson or Marvin Ridge, some of the surrounding, and those are all high schools, but some of even the surrounding middle and high schools in the Waxhaw, Weddington, Marvin area, they pale in comparison. Now, I will say there are some fantastic charter schools that are available for Monroe area students, whether it's Union Academy, CATA. There's just a variety of really good charter schools that are options, but obviously they don't have the same attendance or acceptance of students from you have to apply for charter schools. As opposed to just straight zoning for those schools. So something to definitely keep in mind, that if public schools and the direct rating of schools is very high on your list, Monroe compared to some of the other areas in especially Union County are not going to be quite as high. A pro of living in the Monroe area is definitely access to outdoor activities, things to do. You have parks that you have easy access to. And Monroe is definitely an area that has some very rural parts. So you have the green space to have these parks that are very family friendly, whether it's Crooked Creek Park, there's Belk Tonawanda Park, that is another public access park with swings and all the things you need for the kids and family. You also have access to all the green space that we talked about in some of our other videos in Weddington, Waxhaw, and is really set up for taking advantage of things to do in the Union County area. You have the Dowd Theater, which is something to do for the family to go watch plays, taking advantage of the civic part of Monroe. And then for the adults, there's a really cool place I recommend checking out, the Treehouse Vineyard, which, as it sounds, it is a vineyard, a place for having a dinner, having a after dinner drink, but it's actually a place where you can rent out as well for different events. And it's super cool. The name Treehouse, you actually can go up in a treehouse and have a drink. Very cool. So a lot going on in the Monroe area as a family-centric area. I mentioned the downtown area that's outdoors, walkable. So Monroe's got it going on from a outside activities perspective in a very economical price point as well. Now, a con for the Monroe area, if you're looking for an area that we talked about Waxhaw, or really Wesley Chapel is a good example, that are newer, that have brand new builds, and it's got that fresh feeling all about it. Well, Monroe, as I talked about, is one of the most historic cities in the North Carolina or in the Charlotte area, especially Union County. And there are places that are dated, that are needing revitalized. And as you drive through, you can see that transition taking place around downtown, the eastern part of Monroe. As you get closer to Wesley Chapel, you see areas that are popping up, that land is getting turned into brand new communities, like Weddington Ridge, because it's on the ridge of Weddington, but it's technically Monroe. So there is a transition going on. And that's also why the price point is so economical, because there is an opportunity for investors or families to come in and really revitalize some of these homes in some of these areas that really has opportunities for growth and for revitalization. But those neighborhoods may not be a fit for what you're looking for, depending on the stage of the community or the neighborhood. So it's really one of those things to consider as you drive through. Is this part of Monroe for me? Would I rather be in new construction? But overall, it's a great opportunity and community with a lot of things going for it. But it's definitely a thing to consider if you're looking for a brand new community or brand new neighborhoods that may not be what's there right now in Monroe. Well, thanks so much for joining us on our overview of the pros and cons of one of the most historic, charming communities in all of Union County, Monroe, North Carolina. If this was helpful to you, I hope you'll like and subscribe and join us as we talk about all things South Charlotte. I'm Steve Jarrell with the Longleaf Group at eXp Realty. Make sure to reach out if you have any questions or you just want someone to talk about real estate. Make sure to reach out. Until next time, we'll see you then.